welcome to Santa Barbara Now, the Veterans Project. I am Assemblyman Angelo Santabarbara, and we call this the Veterans Project because we talk to local veterans in our community and we share their stories on the show and talk about their service to our country and coming back to the community and joining us. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Amy Amoroso, New York State Director for Veterans Business Outreach. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you, Angela. Happy to be here. Thank you so much.
It's great to be back on the show here. We have some great guests. Why don't you introduce our guests? We have actually a World War II veteran sitting right next to you.
We do. Oh my gosh. So Josephine Smith is our World War II veteran, U.S. Army, and her MOS was MP. So she was a military police in the Army. Fantastic. I'm so excited to have Josephine here.
Welcome, Josephine. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
So I'm so happy that you're here.
You.
I'm so happy we get to celebrate you and what you've done for our military, for us. So thank you for that and welcome. And next to her is John Otswald. John is actually Josephine's son. And I met John 6 months ago now, John?
Yeah.
And we met at a meeting and we just started talking, so we had a great rapport starting, and then he said, "Oh my gosh, I have my mother who's this World War II veteran, and actually John's a Vietnam veteran."
Yeah. It's great to be here.
Thank you, John.
Yep, and John, you were with the U.S. Navy.
Yeah.
And certainly want to thank you both for your service. There's families of service like this that we hear about all the time, and certainly it's great to have you here to share some of your stories. I know we have a lot of pictures here and some things we're going to go through, but we want to hear from you. Josephine, tell us about your time in the service and some of your experiences you might want to share.
Oh, my time in service was probably 3 years that I was in the military. It was very startling thing because I wasn't used to being anywhere outside of the hometown, and to get there and for the people to welcome you, but then to tell you what you're going to do, and right away I was a military police, which was what am I supposed to do? And I remember the CO coming over and he said, "We will tell you what you're going to do," just like that. And that was it was quite a thing. And to be chosen for that particular thing at 18, 19 years old, and it was quite an experience. It was quite an experience, and it was not just work, because we could, go somewhere and go to the concerts in Washington D.C. I was in Fort Myer, Virginia at that time, and we used to go to the dances and music right in Washington, which was all of my life was music. Since we were little children, my father had a full orchestra, and we all grew up with this music. And now my son has the music; he plays music, and we're still all in love of all the music. But at the military, it was a tremendous experience. I felt me going in when something like this happened to my brother, who was only 90 years old, and to have that, I felt good that even though he couldn't come back, I was with him.
That's a picture of your brother there.
Yes.
Okay.
I felt, see it, brother and sister inspired to serve. I felt that even though he wasn't there, was just some kind of closeness about me going into the military. That's what it felt like, that I was very close to him.
And Sonny he joined the Marine Corps.
He was a Marine, yes.
And
yes.
you could not.
No, he couldn't, because the age was different, and I wasn't going to wait 2 more years. Yeah. And they told me the Army could go in right away, and that's what I did because of this boy. Mm-hmm. That's the story. That's because of him.
It's a beautiful story. Thank you, Josephine.
And now, John, you heard these stories at home, or share some of the experiences your mother would tell you, or what was it like living at home, hearing some of this?
Well, in particular, my Uncle Sonny, I never met him, obviously. He died before I was born, but I write for 2 local newspapers, the Saratogian and the Record in Troy. And I've written a bunch of veterans columns, and one of them was, I look forward to meeting him, because I have his letters from World War II, I've heard stories about him, and I often longed for a relationship with him, even though, again, he wasn't around, to have an older mentor. And it's a very intimate part of my emotional life when I think of him. So
I'm going to show another picture
I know
of Sonny,
him.
just to show respects, because Sonny was actually, he was shot down in World War II.
That's
correct?
right. That's right. So there was no recovery of his body, but you know, his spirit is still certainly with us.
course.
Like all of our lives are entwined with veterans issues. Whether you have a neighbor or a family member, or just even strangers, we're all connected somehow with the veterans network.
And I feel that at veterans events, when we have ceremonies and we honor veterans, there is a closeness. Everyone
Right.
can feel that's in attendance, and you can. It's like, you know, you just, whether you're a veteran or not, you feel close to the people that are there, and I think that's what you're talking about.
Exactly,
You just
exactly.
feel everybody is there for to honor veterans, and you feel you share, and everyone shares in the kinship of being an American citizen.
That's right. And no matter what type of veteran, you know, there's so many different branches of the armed forces,
Yep.
and there's so many different places people are. There's people who are deployed for combat areas, and there's people who are never in combat, but nevertheless sacrifice years of their lives away. And as you know, especially in the service, sometimes you just get lucky. You can get orders for Afghanistan, Hawaii, or Germany, who knows?
So, and you said you write several columns for
Yeah,
the newspapers, and
yeah.
do you share some of your thoughts and some of your own personal experience in those columns?
Well, there's a wide variety, very diverse. I wrote a column called When a Chaplain Dies in War, which is obvious by the title what it's about. You know, when you're away, especially in a combat area where you've lost hope and you feel lonely, and your only spiritual lift is through the chaplain, and what happens when a chaplain is killed in
Passes
war.
on, yeah.
I wrote about the journeys of reconciliation and healing that Dr. Edward Tick leads to Vietnam every year. And I was on one of those journeys to Vietnam and met with the Viet Cong and met with the people, met with the orphans, that type of thing. I've written about the Patriot Flight. I've written about friends of mine who died in my neighborhood during the Vietnam era. So fortunately, a wide variety, and there's going to be a compilation. I have a book coming out within the next 2 months about that. But again, as we all know, there's so many varied experiences that are involved in the armed forces.
And I know, and the Patriot Flight you mentioned, I know we have some pictures to share.
We do.
And I know Amy tells me that you both got on the Patriot Flight.
Yes.
And Josephine, why don't we talk about that a little bit? How was that experience? I know we got some pictures to share, and we'll show those in a second here. But tell us about your flight.
Oh, it
Look
was
at this.
to go on the
Look
flight
at
was
this.
kind of, you know, it was this way and that way, but it was quite an experience, and all the men on the flight were just probably oldest mate as far as going to be. They were, you know, from World War II. Most of them were from World War II, and they were just wonderful. Everybody was talking to everybody, and when we got there, it was great. It was great to go around in Washington, because when I first saw Washington, D.C., it wasn't like that. It was all, but they fixed it up, and it was beautiful.
Well,
It
you're
was really-
holding
it was
you're holding the
beautiful.
photo. Actually, you're holding the photo that we have
Yeah,
here
yeah,
in your
yeah.
in your
There
hand
they
there.
are.
And this is you and John, so mother
Yeah,
and son
yeah.
down at the monuments in Washington, D.C. on the Patriot Flight. And you're holding Sonny and yourself, brother and sister, as you went down there, so that's
Yeah,
beautiful.
just like that.
Yeah, that's
Now, Amy,
excellent.
tell us
Yeah.
about the Patriot Flight. So this is
Okay.
something that's available to veterans.
It is.
And how do we encourage people to take advantage of this?
Yeah, so with the Patriot Flights, and what's exciting too is that in May they have a Patriot Flight just for women veterans. So they're looking for World War II, and they've opened it up to also Vietnam and Korean War veterans. So now they're kind of broadening out the veteran scope, I guess, so that they
Yeah.
can offer more to veterans. The veterans get to go for free. Which is fantastic. I actually went last year as well. I'm not a veteran. And I went as a guardian.
Yep.
So there was a veteran that went, Korean War veteran, and he didn't have anybody to kind of go with him. So I paid. It's $350, so it's a nominal fee,
Yeah.
to go and experience this. And you're on the flight with all these veterans. They leave right out of Albany International Airport about 6 o'clock in the morning. You first start at the Christian Brothers Academy. And there's a big procession over there to honor all the veterans that are going on the flight. You get on the flight, you fly into BWI, and what a great time. Did you guys get all that applause when you went down there?
Yeah, certainly.
I couldn't even believe it. It's
Yes.
just such a heartwarming experience and tear-jerking. I mean, these veterans
Yeah.
don't know what's happening because it's kind of a secret to them, Sorry. And
But
we're
if you're
getting to-
watching and
Right.
you know a veteran, I
Please
encourage
go,
you to
yes.
look at the Patriot
The
Flight
Patriot
for
Flight.
veterans that you know.
For veterans, right. And like I said, it's free. And they fly them down to Washington. They get to see all the monuments. And it's a fabulous time. And it's to honor the veterans that were in the war, honor, Washington, D.C., where these monuments were, structured for our veterans. So it was phenomenal. So, in honor, again, of Women History Month, May is Patriot Flight's women-only veterans flying down to Washington, D.C. So I think that'll be kind of interesting.
Well, we hope viewers will take advantage of that. If they know veterans. I know we're going to flash up some of those pictures on the screen as well as the show continues here. But Josephine, I know you have some other pictures you wanted to share with us. Those look.
I like this one.
Yeah, why don't you
This
tell
is
us
my
what we're looking
favorite.
at here?
I don't know if the viewers can see, but she's on horseback.
Yeah. Okay. And that. Yeah, I see.
I was a military. That's what my duty was, a military police,
Yep.
which was surprising. And we rode the horses round the barracks and all over. And it was 3 females, just 2 other ladies from New York, and me were the ones that were on duty there. All the time I was there, it was just the 3 of us, and it was quite an experience to.
Excuse me, Mom, tell one of the ladies we're from Brooklyn, and we have a friend, Nicole, is from Brooklyn. And tell us about the woman from Brooklyn, how she talked.
Hey, you get out of the way. Get out of there. She was, she was a delight, but she was very humorous, but she just spoke like, and anybody was near her or something like that's what she said, get out of the way.
She'd give her one of those, forget about it. She'd give her one of those.
D's and O's, yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting. I mean, even just on the horseback. And I asked you if you remembered the weapon that you carried.
Yes,
Do you
well,
remember?
yes.
Was it a handgun or a pistol?
Once in a while a pistol, because we were asked to, I forgot about this, we were asked to go to town. There was some commotion there, and we had to go because some of the fellows that were in the military at the fort there were involved in it, and we had to go there. And they said, I remember because when we got there, they said, look, what are you kid? Hey, little kid, what are you doing here? What do you want to do? And then that's when we had a pistol and one of the clubs.
Oh,
Both,
you had one of
yeah,
those like
the
billy
clubs.
clubs.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so they took them in and brought them back. There was our own fellas that were involved, so we had to put them where I was there as a military police. I had to put them in jail with the other girls, and then just we had to stay there. Whether we locked them in or not, we had to stay there because they were kind of unruly at the time.
I see.
But the Brooklyn girl was very humorous, very, very, we had a...
And one of the things we always talk about, of course, is the training, the basic training, and there was training that went along with
Yes, we had
attending the
training.
service. And we're gonna take a short break. When we come back, I want to hear about the training part from both of your experiences as well. We're gonna take a short break here on Santabarbara Now, the Veterans Project. Stick with us. We're gonna talk more to Josephine and her son John here about his time in the service, and we're gonna share some more pictures as well. So stay with us. There are over 900,000 military veterans and families in New York State. Hello, I'm Assemblyman Angelo Santabarbara. As a veteran, I know how difficult it can be to carry around your paperwork to receive veteran benefits. The New York State Legislature has created a special military designation for driver's licenses. Those who qualify can have the word veteran printed on their license at no cost to make it easier to show their veteran status. For more information, visit the DMV website. And thank you for your service. Hi, I'm Angelo Santabarbara. I'm the first in my family to be born in this country. The first to get an education. The first to serve in our nation's military. I've lived here my whole life. It's our home. And I'm the first in my family to be an assemblyman for the place we call home. Welcome back to Santa Barbara Now, the Veterans Project. We have been talking with Josephine Ray Smith, World War II veteran, an MP in the Army actually, and her son John Ostwald, who is actually a Vietnam veteran in the U.S. Navy. Welcome back from the break. We've been talking about a lot of things actually, One of the things we left with before we went on to the break is the training part of entering the service. And I remember my basic training vividly, actually. There was no Facebook back then, but I do remember just about everybody I met, and I remember the service, and it does change who you are, and it does give you a path, a direction towards leadership. Josephine, we want to hear you. We talked about you riding horses and being an MP and patrolling, and sometimes have to take people in custody. What's the training that goes along with that?
What is the training?
What training did you have to go through to get into the service?
Oh, well, I had to learn how to get on that horse.
And that's what I was just asking. How do it's not sometimes it's not easy to just get on a horse, right? So did they work with you?
I was tall, and they had little stools like this to step on, and then to get onto the horse. And the one from Brooklyn, she could jump on like this, and she'd jump right on the horse.
Without the stool? Without the stool?
Without the stool, yes, she was something. But that's what I had to do, is to step on that and get onto the horse. And it was, it was different because I don't think I was one for riding the horses too much at home. But it got right into it. I got right into it. It was easy, and it was my job to do, and I was really gung-ho on learning how to really be what I was supposed to be, very much so. I had a couple of experiences that were really something. We were called to pick up our own soldiers from there and arrest them, and which they didn't like at all. And there was another one, I'm trying to think of it, that was outside, that was big. Do you remember that?
And that, Josephine, besides I looked over some of your information, and John tells me you also had a career in dancing.
Dancing, oh yes.
And we should talk about that as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And you're still dancing to this day.
Yeah,
Well,
well, definitely.
we grew up with my father had a full orchestra, so we were home, and we'd playing this and that and all. We had a piano home always, one of those big ones, and Daddy used to be playing all like that. So we were right into music right from the start, and it really was big time for me because that's what I wanted. Katie, my sister Kay, would just dance a little bit if she wanted to, but not to be ruled by it, which I was. And I was at the time. I also, when Jimmy Durante was here, we were on Proctor's stage and the RPI Fieldhouse, and that was in the 60s. I think it was, wasn't it? In the 60s?
I see John smiling. He remembers. I think you're.
Early 60s, Jimmy Durante, the internationally known star at the time,
Of
and they were in a show together locally because he got married at St. Anthony's in Troy, and the pastor was a friend of his, and they had a show to show his appreciation to the parish priest.
He asked me to go back with him to New York because I did all the music and all. He said, "You got to come to New York," and I'm married. I was always married.
Yeah.
You've always blamed that on me, that you're not a big star. I remember that.
So I see Amy's holding one of the pictures. John, tell us when this picture was taken.
Okay, that's pretty scary. That's
This
me.
is a great picture.
Well, we
John.
found it. We have it on the show
great
now.
That's me.
Picture.
When I was young and in the Navy. But as something you said about boot camp, changing the personality, and that's true for all of us who are in the armed forces. Each boot camp has a different personality, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, and we have different experiences, but we'll forever be different. We fold our clothes differently, we may approach relationships differently, and it was very good for me, especially in school and college. I'm not really that smart, but I have the discipline and the focus that made me do well in school.
I think you're pretty smart.
Well,
I think you're pretty smart.
I'm street smart because I'm older and I've been through a lot of things, but
You can play the piano.
I played the piano and I lived in
It's
Brooklyn.
funny you mentioned the clothes, and you're right. The habits you pick up.
Oh, yeah,
you
definitely.
bring home, and when I came home, my parents. They were like, "What's wrong with you?" So I have an old. digital photography was not big back then, but I did find some old photos, and I posted one on Facebook, and it was one of the very few in the barracks, and I was ironing a hat. And I couldn't remember why I was ironing the hat.
Yeah.
But you know what it was? You did want to have the best presentation when you had the hat on, and it was it was battle dress uniform, but nevertheless, I wanted it.
Crisp and clean,
crisp
right
and
there,
clean,
yeah.
and you find people doing that, shining boots to the point where they're like glass.
In a more serious vein, some vets get into trouble sometime after their service, depending on what happens. And I've been involved in providing education for attorneys, especially defense attorneys, to let them know some of the profound differences that vets experience, especially if they're deployed in combat areas.
Sure.
So they're very important. So there's subtle little things, and there's some really important, possible traumatic things that happen.
So, Josephine, I want to hear more about. Now, tell us what are some of your more memorable experiences in your service? I know you mentioned the horses. What are some of the other things you remember?
Well, I was called by the CO to go to. They wanted to see me over the Pentagon building, and
that's right.
which I didn't. I said, "Oh, so you just go over there. You got to go over there." And when I got there was all these big soldier, not the CO and all like that. And they said, walk up and down, Josephine, we want to look at you. And then they said, you have been chosen to model the new WAC uniform overseas.
The new, it was a new uniform?
Yes.
Okay.
She was the model. She had a great figure,
to
she
model the
stated.
new WAC
Yeah.
And is that the,
So
is that,
this
is that it? That's
Look
it?
at
Okay.
this beautiful picture. Look at that.
But when I went home and told my mother, she was hysterical because my brother went down in the plane.
It just happened, so,
And she said something will happen to you, and I never went. I never went to this thing to go to.
Excuse me, could you tell the audience about the Hess jewels when the American soldiers were accused of stealing the jewelry in Germany, and you and your group were charged with guarding the prisoners
really?
who
They
were American
our
soldiers?
Our own soldiers were over there, and they did steal the Hess jewelries. I don't know if you ever heard of Hess jewelry. All their jewels and all came back, and they were caught by. So they called us in and said, "You have to guard these people," and they were right into the. And they just looked like any other soldier, but we had to guard them for quite a while before they went to trial.
And they tasked you with doing that, and how long did you have to guard them for?
Oh, until I'd see, it was probably about 3 weeks before they could get them all, all the what they had to get together, the paperwork and everything. But it was our own soldiers that did this, went and steal this stuff. So,
John, one of the other things we always talk about, Amy and I talk about, is how technology has really changed the way we communicate when you are overseas and when you are serving. Now, there was no Facebook when I was in the service. There was no way to communicate back, and there was no way. I lost track of a lot of the people that I served with, and we're finding that we hear about Skyping. That technology is really changing the way you can communicate back home. What are you hearing about that?
I can tell you the good and the bad.
Okay.
I'm a volunteer for the national nonprofit Soldier's Heart, and so I do a lot. I've interacted with a lot of younger vets and older vets. Tragically, some of the young vets, I taught at Hudson Valley Community College, they might learn that one of their comrades died, and they might learn via Facebook. So when I say comrades, when you use the term comrade in the armed forces, it's like a platonic love, especially if they're deployed for war. So that's very disturbing. On the flip side, some vets who are overseas in Germany and Hawaii, wherever they are, Afghanistan, that may be able to communicate with loved ones at home using the technology. For older vets, in my age group, the way to communicate with them, if you want to advertise some event, is usually flyers and posters that you bring to the VFW.
Right.
And for the younger vets, it's obviously some of the things that you mentioned, the Facebook,
social media,
Twitter, the social media, that type of thing. So it's a useful tool, but again, there's a distressing part of that.
And that's a side of it that people should be aware of as well.
Certainly.
Yeah, the good and the bad.
And I
The
know
good and
Josephine
bad.
wants to.
Yes, she
Josephine
does.
has something.
yeah,
Yes, you.
I was just thinking of when I was at the last thing, I was at a concert in Washington, and we were sitting up on the like this, and listening to all the music. And when you wanted to dance, you go down, and they were sitting. All of a sudden, you hear it's attention, everybody, attention, everybody. So listen carefully. The Japanese just surrendered to World War II, or the United States. I was there in 1945 when that was told and set. 1945 was when it ended, and I was right there and trying to get off to go home and all back to was chaos. I think I was there right until during the night when somebody came and. But that's what they said. Attention, everybody. Japanese just surrendered to our allies.
That's powerful.
1945.
Yeah, yeah.
That's something.
You went on the honor flight together? Is that?
No,
you
I
didn't?
no.
We
We
went-
went together.
You
They
went
went
together, but
together.
you went on a
together.
different
I went on a
okay.
different one. Yeah.
And I asked this before, but what's it like to hear some of these firsthand accounts of stories like the ones you just shared? I mean, it's amazing to be able to hear that I was there when that happened.
It's for some younger vets who are having difficulties, those stories are something they need to talk about. Telling their story is cathartic, it's cleansing for them.
It is.
And sometimes you hear really great stories of heroism and closeness, and sometimes difficult stories. But those difficult stories are obviously useful. Again, a cleansing type of thing. And there's all kinds of stories that are just terrific and, enlightening and all patriotic, all types of, you get all kinds of emotions when you hear the stories.
And what's great about those flights is that they're all veterans practically
Yeah.
on the flights, so they're recounting stories, and they were over here, and this one was over there, and this one was overseas when all of this has happened, and they have just different timelines, different stories, different experiences. And
Right.
it's just you can't beat it. You have to go. You have to go on this flight and
Well,
just
I'm
listen.
and I'm happy we're sharing it
Oh, my
actually with
goodness.
with everybody that's watching here.
It's
And
moving.
Josephine, I know you have something else you want to tell us, please. I want to hear.
I'm looking at you. To
Yeah.
say, they sent for me in the Pentagon building, and I had to go over there, and they said, all right, march up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And I didn't know what it was about. I said, what did I do? And he said, you were chosen out of the whole company here to model the new WAC uniform overseas.
And we showed that picture earlier,
Yeah,
and
this one here,
but you never did do it. You never did go to do it overseas.
Because my mother was distraught because my brother went down the plane and she was hysterical. And no, I never went.
Yeah.
But that was quite an honor.
Well,
to
what an
be
experience
chosen.
that is,
Yes,
you know,
well,
out
yeah.
of everybody,
I could
you
see
get
it, I
chosen
could
for
see it
that.
now very clearly when I was over there and over to walk up and down. And yes, it was, but that wasn't to be. That wasn't to be for me to go there.
Right.
Well, we're happy to have you here today.
Thank
We're happy
you.
you're sharing
Here.
these photos. We're going to share them with the audience. We're going to post them up and put them up on our show for everyone to see.
Yeah.
Some of these need to be preserved, and we're going to make them digital and save them, and we'll get some copies over to you as well. And we're happy to have you here and
Oh,
to
it's
share some of these
wonderful.
stories. We hope to have you back at some
After
point.
all these years to say all this, it's just wonderful.
Yeah,
to
and
everybody.
that's what this show is about, right?
Right,
I mean,
absolutely.
to hear stories, to hear and to share, because
And to share.
these firsthand accounts. I think it's amazing to be able to hear. You just said I was there when they announced that you were actually there. So to hear that and to share, I think people do need to hear these stories, and more veterans should share their stories if they can. But that's what we're trying to accomplish here on the show. I want to thank both of you for being on. And we hope to have you back to talk more about some of your experiences.
Thank you so much.
And
Thank
thanks
you.
for sharing. Thanks for sharing and being here today, Amy. As
Yes,
always, you're a great
pleasure.
co-host. Thanks
This
for
is
being
great.
here, and thanks for arranging our guests to be able to be here and
Yes.
talk on the show. Join us again here on Santa Barbara Now on the Veterans Project. We're going to talk more about local veterans in your community, just like Josephine, sharing those firsthand accounts and those experiences, and sharing what it's like to come back and be part of our community. John, we thank you. We thank you both for your service.
Thank you.
Come back
Thank you.
and watch us again on the Veterans Project on our next episode.